Welcome to humandesign.live. We are live streaming and broadcasting to YouTube as well. And we're going to be talking about learning the lingo of human design. As you can see, we are looking at the just now chart. I like to start off all of my classes with a brief look at the transits. Transits are the current planetary activations through our Rave Mandala wheel. So I'm just going to show you what the Rave Mandala wheel looks like. You can see that the date right here, it's 11/20/2021. And it happens to be my human design unconscious birthday because my sun and earth is the 14.5 and the 8.5, as you can see down here. And where that is in the mandala wheel, you can see that the 14, let me just clear that real quick. 14 is where that little tiny dot is with the circle around it. That is where our sun currently is. An opposition in the wheel. The earth is always exactly on the opposite side of our Rave Mandala wheel. So this is the Rave Mandala. The word rave, by the way, is a word that the voice, if you're familiar with human design and its origins, Ra Uru Hu, said he was penetrated by a voice. And it was 8 days that he experienced this penetration of the voice. And so he then started writing out all these graphs and these maps and these mandalas, and all of this info was bombarding him. And this is where we have the human design system, the birth of the human design system. So we're looking at a mandala wheel that was downloaded, you could say, by a man named Ra Uru Hu. And in looking at the transits, we have just entered into, back a few weeks ago, entered into a quarter of the wheel that is really profound. It's about the placement of the planetary activations as they go through this quarter of the wheel. And what it's about is mutation and transformation. So, for us, I'm over here in Arizona, sunny Arizona, and it's for us going through into our winter time, our deep, dark nights where we have these, the fading of the sun, not as many bright days here. And so this is for us a path of profound transformation as we move through this mandala wheel. And I want to call your attention to how many planetary activations are actually there right now in this quarter of the wheel that is about profound transformation. We have the big heavy hitter of Pluto. There's Pluto. We have Venus. We have Saturn. We have the South Node, of course, the Sun, as I mentioned, Mercury, and Mars. So a lot of planetary activations that are taking us through a deep and profound transformation, not only personally, but also collectively, individually, and at large. You might be feeling this pressure to mutate, to transform. And so when we look at our standard Rave Mandala, here we have the sun and earth again, and I'm going to show you that in the body graph, they're right here and right here. And this right here is where we have our sacral center. Up here is where we have our throat center. So oppositions in the wheel don't necessarily make channels, and sometimes they do. Now, the sun and earth is always going to be 70% responsible for 70% of the neutrino streams that are bombarding us right now. If you don't know what the word neutrino is, then you haven't taken Living Your Design as an Awakening Experience. That is the first class in our steps of Human Design Foundation coursework. And that is a requirement before we go into Rave ABCs as an extension of the Living Your Design Awakening experience. So now what I'm going to that these next few symbols here are the nodes of the moon. And that shows our conditioning. Right now, it's actually a planetary channel that is creating all kinds of planet-wide conditioning for all of us to be busy and to see a particular way. That's what the nodes of the moon are. They're directional. So as I go through our process today, I'm going to do my best to slow things down and to explain new words, new concepts for you so that you can come to a personal awareness for yourself, doing my best to be sensitive to a newcomer's needs. So for those of you who are new to the system, if you have any questions as I go through this, please feel free to type into the chat, either into our private room right now where we all are, or on the YouTube live, and one of us will get back to you as far as your questions. So personally for me, I have a 1-8. That channel is about the individual expression when inspired to creatively contribute and to hold a group together towards group goals. And that is my joy. It's one of my gifts, is that I can be a teacher. And you can see the gate 8 as we're looking. This is mybodygraph.com, by the way. My gate 8 personally is in the exaltation of the teacher, because we have planetary activations that can influence things in a this or that position. You see the little triangle there? It's just this or that right now. Okay, don't look at it as good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just a this and a that. You can see that there's a lot of activations here that are pointed into one side, the down, or one side, the up. The up, Ra called exalted. The down, Ra called detriment. And he said if there was one thing, one mistake that he made that he would go back and change or fix, it was not to call it exalted or detriment, but merely a this and a that. The exaltation and the detriment actually points to the collective world at large, our judgments of those line values, those, here we go, line qualities. So after that dot right there are all the lines. We have 6 lines. So it's going to be one of 6 lines. And each one of those lines operate as a binary for the most part. So here, as you can see with gate 8, as we're looking at gate 8, line 5, here's the binary, the exaltation and the detriment. So the collective world at large judges exaltation as good and detriment as bad. But in human design, the further that you explore your own body graph and you study this magnificent system, the more you recognize that there is no good, there is no bad, there is no right, there is no wrong. There is only this and there is that. And when you get more comfortable with the this and that of your own design, you get much more accepting of not only your own personal experience of what your life is, but also other people, accepting other people for who they are, and your relationships get better. That's one of the biggest gifts I've found in coming to contact with this system. So now we're going to go as far as what's going on in the transits. I want to let you know, if you could print out or look at your body graph right now, look down at your own personal body graph. If you don't have one, go to mybodygraph.com to get one. And if you're looking at your body graph, you're going to be able to compare and contrast the just now with your own body graph. And when you see in your own body graph that you have an area white, like these examples here, I've just highlighted the heart center and the splenic center, our body awareness and our willpower function. When you look down and see white in your own chart and you see in the just now that there is definition that is involved in the just now, these are global conditioning patterns for sensitivity, for busyness, for inspiration and awareness. When you look down at your body graph, you see that the just now has something that colored in that you don't. That is a signpost to be aware. One of the biggest benefits of knowing human design is to be prepared for the weather. Today, this is the weather. This is the contributing factor to conditioning or homogenization. Conditioning and homogenization may feel kind of, bad or wrong, but that too isn't bad or wrong. It's just part of the movie that we're watching. It's part of the life that we're living, because wherever you are open in your design is where you're going to school in this life. And when definition comes through, whether it be from the transits, the way that we're being programmed to see, or whether it comes from somebody that you're in a relationship with, that is what we are learning about day in and day out, however long we come into contact with that energy. So when you look down at your body graph, you see the openness that is beautiful and brilliant, and it can be clean. However, most people come to this identifying with the openness and thinking that that is who they are, because that's where the mind, the not self mind, gets lodged or stuck. And the sooner that you get in contact with recognizing the openness in the design as something that is influenced by conditioning from the world outside of you, you will start to recognize the reality that there is no choice, that we are just watching a movie, that this is a program, that we are all programs, patterns within patterns, looking at patterns within a pattern. And the greater totality of the pattern can be seen when we look at that beautiful Rave Mandala wheel. So now I'm going to take you into my presentation. And as you go through this presentation with me, I would love to have a conversation after I finish, if there are any questions, where you want to bring something to light, maybe a concept, not something personal about your charts, because I won't share charts in this class since we are live streaming, broadcasting live to YouTube. But with regards to the lingo, learning the lingo, the Rave ABCs, concepts that I'm going to be giving you an overview about in this next hour or so. All right. So again, my friends, welcome to Learning the Lingo. We're in the very first class of Rave ABCs, basically an open house, an overview, welcoming you to the human design system. And there's our beautiful Rave Mandala wheel again. This time it's colored in. Everything is blank here as far as the channels are concerned, but we see now the centers of this Rave Mandala wheel colored in the colors that they would be colored in if they are defined in your body graph. Defined again, meaning that there is a planetary activation between one side of the channel, strength, you could say, but there's at least two planets there in relationship with each other that colors in the centers. The centers are vortexes of energy or hubs of information. And each of them are gone over in detail, in depth in the Living Your Design Awakening program. So I'm not going to do that today. Today, I'm going to say, hello, my name is Laveena. I love empowering people. Particularly, I love empowering people in small groups of people. So I've been doing this for now 7 years, where I've taken small groups of individuals through regular classes in the human design coursework. That's Living Your Design, Rave ABCs, which you are now at the first step of, Rave cartography, and then also I became a human design, or a BG5, that's human design applied to career and work. I started doing that as well through the human design application into the work world. And we have 2 semesters there that are the quicker, more pared down equivalent of our human design foundations. So that's the BG5 Business Institute, if you're interested in the no fluff version of what I'm about to take you through. Because right now, I'm taking you through more of the deeper mystical aspects, more of a broader, bigger picture view of the concepts that are important to the mechanics of human design, or how things work. You can see here is, if I go a little bit closer for you in case you're watching on a small screen. This is an image of my body graph from the Maya Mechanics software. That's the online version, by the way, that we do now have. And what we're seeing is a genetic imprint or a map of one moment, one snapshot in time. The moment of your birth, which created 3 months before and 88 degrees before your birth, also the design imprinting. And this is our genetic blueprint for how we're here to make decisions and the strengths, talents, and gifts that we are designed to come to a full flowering in this life. The one consistent place that we can trust to honor our own nature, our own authority. And when you come to human design, you learn that everyone has their own either authority within their body, or they have a process of authority that requires some interaction with the outside world. So when we look at the human design body graph and our Rave Mandala wheel, we get to see what our unique individual, differentiated perspectives are, how we're here to be our own personal authoritative process and being, our own sovereignty. And we can also see how we are here to be unique outer authorities for others in our lives. And that's one of the things that I want to take you through on a journey is why would you want to learn the A, B, and C's of human design, or the Rave, the mandala wheel, the Rave, the new era of human, of what we are right now as nine-centered human beings. So the biggest benefit for me in learning Rave ABCs is to get in touch with the unique inner mystery of what it is to be alive on this planet, the unique individual truth that all of us have. This right here is a hexagram, hex meaning 6. And that hexagram is actually a pictogram, an image of gate 61. And Pluto has been going through that gate 61 since about the beginning of January 2019. And that's when we saw the huge slew, like a tidal wave of people coming into human design, discovering human design, because human design can give us the gift of knowing that each of us individually has our own unique truth, a truth that is special, a truth that is a light or a fire within us. And when we get in touch with the heart of the soul of that truth, of that light or that fire within us, and it ignites and it burns like a nice roaring fire. When you imagine being a cold winter, dark night, maybe you're in your dark night of the soul and life is really painful. When you come home to that fire that ignites from within, and you warm yourself by your own individual truth of that fire that burns from within, it lights that unique potential within you to fully express the talents and gifts that you were born with, and gives you the life that you were born for. For me personally, that is the biggest key and gift, to be able to be in touch with that light and that heart at the soul of the truth within you, to understand your own personal mystery, the answer to the question of why. Why are we here? What is it all about? What does it all mean? The mechanics can show us how and why and who and what, all of the biggest answers that you always wanted to know, the ponderings of the mysteries in life. This human design system I've been studying for almost, it's 11 years now. And in order for us to be able to come into contact with this truth, it's about the living or the birthing of our own truth within, not about any external answer that somebody else is imposing upon you. And that's the other reason why to learn the ABCs, is to understand the mechanics of your truth, to experiment with those mechanics, because it's not about me or anyone telling you what to do. That's the biggest thing that this system offers us, is not about telling others, well, this is what is happening, so you should do this. It's about letting go of the shoulds and the have-tos and the musts imposed upon you from the outside world. It's about you being who you are for yourself if you're a generator, you being who you are for others if you're a projector like me, you being who you are for the impact that you're here to have in this life, and you being who you are when it comes to the surprise in life that you were born for if you're a reflector. So human design allows us to awaken to the mystery of the oneness of us being a fractal reality of the totality, that we are not, islands, that we are all part of a interdependent truth, that we are all mirrors and part of each other. And when you look at this awakening to the mystery, I've titled this slide. This is again today's transit that I kind of just looked at you a few moments ago. I brought in the imprint from maybe a few hours ago when I first woke up this morning. But it is part of the mystery to see that we are all programmed individually and interface with that program uniquely. So all of us are designed to see things differently, see things uniquely. Our own individual truth is being mutated right now. Again, Pluto mutating as not only us, but also as it goes through the gate, evolving this Rave Mandala wheel. And when it gets in a few years, it gets to gate 41, that is the initiation or the start codon in our genetics that births a new kind of human, the Rave. And so when we awaken to the mystery of being 9-centered humans, you can kind of correlate these centers to the 7-center or 7 chakra, Judaic, or not Judaic, the 7-centered chakra of the Hindu Brahman chakra system. There we go. The Judaic Kabbalah also is shown within the channels or the strengths that are there. But when we awaken to this mystery, we let go of the mind thinking that we are in charge, and we let the body run the show. And when we go through the Living Your Design, we give you the keys to understanding yourself in relational context to others, how you are designed to be unique. But when we go through Rave ABCs, we get to see how we are similar, how we compare on a deeper level, and how we are designed to connect. And that's the most fun thing that I enjoy when we look at the human design system. How do we connect with each other? So here's a quote from some former students that I'd like to share with you as far as why you would want to study ABCs or get deeper into the mechanics. You don't have to, but it might be something that's correct for you. For all projectors, I definitely recommend that you continue on in the journey of mastering this system, at least from the perspective of understanding your human environment, because that is what you are here for. Now, Rachel, being new to human design, she said, I can get lost in all the intricacies of a chart, and it is very deep and profound. I agree. What she writes about Rave ABCs is that it helped her to look at her own design and someone else's from a more holistic and total viewpoint. In Rave ABCs, we look at circuitry. That's one of the ABCs. And circuitry, she says, is key to conceptualizing how people function in the greater scheme of things. So she highly recommends the class, and she came back and did it again because it is very helpful to repeat, particularly for those of us who are attempting to master the system. We offer a 50% discount for students who have already gone through ABCs to take it again with us. So just let us know if you would like to. Now, Kathy became a professional, a Living Your Design guide, and she writes, besides being a prerequisite for professional training, ABCs can benefit anyone interested in human design because it describes the mechanics of you. And in order to navigate from point A to B on a topographical map, you have to know the symbols in the legend and what they mean. With modern GPS, that might be kind of Greek to those of you who are younger, but she sees ABCs as an explanation of our genetic map, as it explains the symbols. What's red and what's black? Why is it like that? What are the roads and tunnels? What are the circuits and the streams? Which allow each of us to navigate through life as our authentic selves, rather than taking on the not self-conditioned detours with roadblocks of resistance in the form of misery and disease as we keep trying to pull our vehicle, our body, off its fractal or off its path, off its purpose. She writes, in my opinion, and I have lots with Gate 17, the Gate of Opinions, ABCs is a necessary part of awakening passenger awareness so that we can enjoy a smoother ride through life. And then we have Dylan, who actually, because of his deconditioning experiment, has changed his name. It became so profound within him that he changed his own name. And I myself and many of the people I see in my classes have also made the shift to embracing a completely new identity because of this human design experiment. He writes, LYD helps us to understand our vulnerabilities and what makes us so different from others. Rave ABCs, on the other hand, helps us to see where we are similar. that seeing that each circuitry influences both our definition and our not self mind, it has personally helped him to understand why he resonates with certain individuals, regardless if they've ever heard of human design before. So if you see the potential for human design to improve the quality of your relationships, he highly recommends diving deeper into learning your Rave ABCs, as do I. And the benefits of human design is that you gain an understanding of you in this world. It reveals your role within the totality of existence. And it allows you to see how your life purpose can flow through you. Well, you don't have to go run around trying to find your purpose or figure it out or mentally do anything to allow it to simply be. So this leads us, when you experiment with type, strategy, and authority, and you engage wholeheartedly and embrace and be dedicated to being your own authority, it allows correct action from the harmony of you being in the flow of life to touch not only yourself, but everyone you come into contact with, which changes your life experience, your experience of life. It is the alchemy of being yourself, and human design awakens us to our own individual, unique, and differentiated true nature. So in this ABCs program, our goals are to establish the human design foundations where type is a constant. So although there will not be a particular class discussing type, we will always be engaging with each other through that framework of aligning to our signatures, our signposts of being off track, our unique way of interfacing with each other, our strategy, and of course, always honoring our authority. So all the things that you learned in living your design, we embrace and we take on and we provide as a constant, kind of like a reschooling, if you will, in order to help you, support you, nurture you in experimenting with being your own authority, living your design. And in ABCs, we also go into chart synthesis, the keynoting of what we're seeing in that genetic map or that blueprint. And in our classes, we definitely encourage class time participation and discussion or group practice, where we start you off and then we slowly start to get you to contribute and help you take the reins over keynoting your own chart. That is one of the homework, optional, but highly encouraged homework assignments, is for you to keynote your own chart. And also, too, we want to encourage you to share, if it's correct for you, as according to your design, share with your family and friends, practice, because in order to get good at anything, we need to practice, we need to recall. So if you're trying to learn the language of human design or the lingo, you wouldn't try to learn some other language without practicing, speaking the language. We're going to help you learn to speak this language as well. So using the keynotes. So what are you in for? This is where I'm going to start covering the basics of the lingo and how Rave ABCs all works, what it's going to cover for you. So what you're going to learn is that we have a black and a red. When you look at a mandala wheel, and so let me just give you a little bit more to contemplate as we orient ourselves to this mandala wheel, to the chart itself. The black and the red aspects, there we go. Those are the black and the red. Always black, always red. Everyone always has unique imprints. Even if you see somebody born on the exact same day, there's going to be deeper layers underneath the surface of these deeper imprints that makes us utterly and uniquely ourselves. There is never a repeat of any imprint, period, in this system. Never, not one. It's always utterly unique. We cannot step in the same river twice, as they say. And so too, no moment in time ever repeats itself. So no human in time has ever repeated themselves. You can you are the only person that can achieve your purpose. You were born for this purpose. So as we look at the black and the red, we understand how we are here to be ourselves from the soul's imprint or our personality construct, as well as our body being the vehicle or the life experience that we are having. So the black and the red aspects are going to be covered as we pull apart your chart. As an example, pulling apart your chart means that we're looking at just the design as well as just the personality. And what does it mean for you when you look at just the personality versus just the design? Okay, so understanding that as a concept. Also, we're going to be talking about circuits and streams. I'm going to show you what that looks like in a little while, and introducing you to channels, channels being the strengths of the life force within the body, the strengths of what makes you uniquely you, and the challenges that arise when you are not operating in alignment with your strengths, with your gifts, with your channels, which are the life force within the design. We also are going to talk about hexagram structure, or the ways in which we can take apart or dismantle, pull apart, and explain those hexagrams, those the ancient Chinese called them I Ching. We have upgraded and we call it the Rave I Ching. We use different language in order to describe the evolution of human and how that works. Also, we're going to help you learn to keynote the main elements in the design. One of the beautiful things that Ra did in this is to take apart this complex system and describe it in a very simple way, in that he gave us a way of analyzing charts through type, strategy, and authority, giving us signposts or signatures to see whether we're on track or off track, and to help us understand the way that the being itself processes information and the fundamental basis for how it's designed to interface with others. So those are some of the simple main components that we're going to show you the mechanics for why they are the way that they are. Simple keynoting of the main elements that you too will be able to do by the end of the next 2 months with your teacher. So in human design, we have a synthesis. It's not just this or that. It's a whole totality. And Ra calls it transcending each component, and that it is experienced at a quantum and also a cellular level. So we're combining the exoteric disciplines, or the quantum physics, biochemistry, and genetics, the sciences, the modern sciences, as well as the esoteric disciplines, or the ancient observational science. It has astrology, the Hindu Brahman chakra system, the Judaic Kabbalah, and the Chinese I Ching, all integrated into this human design mandala wheel. So it's not one of those things, but it is a totality of all of those beautiful things, how we can learn to be ourselves, to love and to be ourselves. We're also going to go over the calculations. So the calculations you can see here on this mandala, or on this body graph, simply the planetary positionings when you were born, the moment of your birth, as well as 3 months before you were born, or the body's imprinting. The body's imprinting, the body being your life experience. So we're going to go over calculations. That's what we mean by calculations. So in this map, the mandala wheel, you can see there are the calculations. It's a little blurry, so I'm going to go back to my chart. And so we can see here on the Rave Mandala, that's a little bit better. All of those planetary imprinting, where they are in that beautiful mandala wheel, and what it means for them to be there in those places in your map. So as we look through the materials of ABCs, another thing that we're going to bring up are called consciousness crystals. If you haven't come into contact with Living Your Design, then you might not know, but the personality crystal, or who you think you are, the conscious personality of you, the soul that was imprinted in this life, at the moment of your birth, it resides in a place in the body or on the body. Design crystal, the vehicle or the unconscious, also resides within a place in the body. And the way that Ra described this is that they are holographic fragments of the original crystalline energy forms that conceived the universe, the thing that was one before we had the splitting off into all of what it is right now that is expanding in this universe of growth that we are a part of. Now, here is an image that is, call it the meat and potatoes, or the most important and most fun thing to learn when it comes to human design, body graph mechanics, and that is the main circuit groups. So a circuit is comprised of channels or strengths within the design that all have a commonality, that are all related to each other, and they're tied together with a super keynote. Now, the word keynote, I want to give you a little bit of a background for what that is. When we look at something as complex, not complicated, but as complex as human design is, when Ra simplified things down or structured things in a unique way in order to get the message across, he had to compact a lot of information into very simple words, and he called them key notes. And the reason for that is that at the fundamental basis of all reality, all we are is sound. And those sounds are what unlock our potential. Now, over your lifetime, from birth, you've been bombarded with sound, with frequency, and all of those keynotes that maybe people have conditioned you to have, to be, to must, to should, so on and so forth. Maybe things that you are not, has lodged within your cells as some kind of wounding that makes you think that you have to be something that you cannot ever be, which is something that was not your genetic imprint. So your genetic imprint is really where we want to get you in touch with recognizing the fundamental basis of what you were designed to play as a role for the totality. So some people have keynotes of empowerment. So the linking up of all of these channels, not the gates, but the channels themselves, are what creates circuitry. Circuits as in energy flows within the individual areas of the body graph that have a commonality, and that commonality is empowerment for those who are individuals. So you can look down at your body graph right now and take a look. Do you have a channel, a strength, a lighting up of the functions of these centers that create the unique individual you? And what are some other keynotes that we can add on to so that you understand you, for you, your uniqueness, for who you are? Now, another thing that we can look at are the collective people. Collective people are all about sharing, and there is sub-circuits within each of these circuits that we're also going to be covering. But these are the fundamental main circuit groups that you really want to pay attention to when you're interfacing with anybody to learn about them and who they are. What's important to them? What do they value? So for me, as an example, I'm about sharing the experience, the feeling, going on adventures, having new experiences, new journeys, new adventures. And it's always about this impersonal sharing. So sharing as an imperative for the expression of how we relate to each other. Can you imagine being able to recognize within your own body graph what you're here to share and how you're here to share and when you're here to share? It's fun to see. And ultimately, it all comes back to you being your own authority, knowing how you operate, not doing something because the map says so or I say so, but to experiment and to find out what's really at the basis of what you are. Now, tribal is at the foundation of what we are as humans. Tribal is all about support. So when you look down at your body graph, you can see, do you have a channel, a strength that makes you tribal, that makes you about supporting and being supported in return? It's a very, very important and one of the most empowering things to recognize. Now, within these main circuit groups, with the exception of the power column that is within this area of the body graph. So this is the power column within the body graph. There are all kinds of streams of awareness. Ooh, and this is not also a stream of awareness, this right here. Okay, everything else operates within a stream of awareness. So one of the things that we're going to be taking a look at are, what is your process or path? What is your position within that stream of awareness? So as an example, here's a stream of feeling. And me as an example, I'm sitting here with my sun and my Mars and my Mercury here communicating with you, initiating you on a new course of adventure to make change or progress be part of your experience in your life, if you invite me to be a part of advising you in your life, if it's correct for you and it's correct for me. So as we move through this path on this adventure and this journey through life, you get to come into contact with an experience like none other. And me sharing that experience with you is one of the things that lights me up inside, a lighting up of my soul's purpose, if you will, because that's where my conscious sun is. And these are part of my outer authority to you, my Mercury communicating, and my Mars mutating you. So understanding where your genetic predisposition is and feeling secure, confident in that knowledge of how you are here to be you, it is the most thrilling thing, the most my body is all excited. All the most fabulous thing. I wish I could just like touch you and infect you with what this feels like in my body. I'm doing my best through the voice, but you know, the awareness streams. Here we go. Here's the awareness streams. I forgot I had this slide in here. The fields of awareness. This is an actual image that Ra himself created to show us the fuel, the potential, the possibility, and the expression traits within that field of awareness that we are all a part of. This is a place where you can get your chart and the chart of the people closest to you and start seeing, how do you communicate in order to create particular kinds or fields of awareness, whether that be about mental awareness, body awareness, or emotional awareness. So that's a really fun class. I absolutely adore that class. Fields of awareness, because we have awareness centers. There are three. One is a developing spirit consciousness, the solar plexus. And these fields of awareness give us our either physical fear, mental anxiety, or emotional nervousness. So even if you don't have a strength within one of these fields of awareness or awareness streams as they move through the body graph, you can see what gate activations that you have as a potential fear that maybe you hook up into with another person in order to create the shared expression of that fear. Just another one of those, like these things that I'm giving you are like secret key codes on a video game. That's what I love about human design. It's the video game of life, the imprinting that shows us the unique expressions of what we are here to experience with each other. So now with the hexagram line overview, I'm going to talk a little bit about this and kind of just introduce perhaps a new concept to you if you haven't been in these classes before. Here's the neutrino stream conceptualized by Loki, who is one of Ra's sons that works with Jovian Archive. And you can see he's put the terms base, tone, color, line, and gate. So here's the gate for an example activation of that gate for this date up here at the top. It was in gate 36. And at that moment in time, we had line 5 as where the position of that planet was. And underneath that, it was in the color 4. And underneath that, it was in the tone 1. And underneath that, it was in the base 4. What that means is it's giving us a preciseness to the activation of that time frame. I haven't looked up the date. I'm assuming that's the sun, because the sun is our, core essence of the programming that we receive. But to understand hexagram lines and the uniqueness of each of us individually, it's important to recognize that there's so much more underneath the surface that lends one to the expression of not only that line, but also that gate. So it's like circuitries. You can see circuits like lead one in one particular direction, depending on which area, which flow of the path that you go to. So here's the flow in order for that person to be imprinted in that way. And we have all of these different planetary activations that are also imprinted in that way. And that's why the uniqueness, that's why the utter difference, and how we all are with beyond compare, without comparison, when you look at your own design, to embrace the uniqueness of you. So hexagram structure, another thing that Ra gave us as a visual to conceptualize what the 6 lines could be about to help us understand them, is he gave us a house metaphor. And in this program, we're going to be talking about the house metaphor and helping you to understand how to process what you're looking at when you're seeing the hexagram line values from the perspective of the personality Sun Earth and design Sun Earth. It also applies to the rest of the activations, but primarily we want to really get you in touch with your profile lines. Now in this program, we don't go through profiles, all of the 12 basic generic profiles, but we are going to talk about your personality construct, the hexagram structure that is creating 70% of who you are, and how to remember how each of these lines function as a generality so that you can identify with your role or your costume in this life. Okay, so that was what you're in for. Now, there are some prerequisites for those of you who are already in the course. You don't have to worry about this because you've been accepted into the course. If you've taken Living Your Design as an awakening experience, some people might call it a workshop. It might have been given to you over a weekend, individually, in a group, however you took it, as long as you took it with an IHDS, International Human Design School Certified Teacher, a Living Your Design guide, then you are qualified. And as long as you've had a foundation reading from an International Human Design School certified analyst. Now, analysts have gone through a 3.5-year program. And with the rise of so many people doing human design and people creating schools without the certification, I do have to warn you that there are people out there saying they're giving you a foundation reading and maybe not have been qualified by IHDS. So if they do not have the certification, you will need to get an IHGS certified professional analysis before you move forward in this journey. So those are the 2 prerequisites, Living Your Design and a foundation reading. Now, the other requirements that I ask and encourage from each of you is that to remember it's an experiment and to know that it's absolutely okay not to know something. Some things are just unknowable. And I'll be right there with you saying, I don't know. That's a great question. But here's where we could look or who we might ask to find the answer to your question. But sometimes the own internal experimentation, the things that you're looking for, can only be found within and in the deconstruction of your not self purpose and in the embracing of your true self. Are you going to find your answer, which may not be able to be explained? So remember, it's absolutely okay to not know something. Some things are unknowable. Some things you get to know after the body is done and you embrace your bardo or your death experience. So just stay connected to the education and play. It's all an experiment, all of it, all of it, all of it. You are your own laboratory. And our purpose here is simply to guide you further along the path of awakening in order for you to cultivate your awareness so that you can embrace doing your homework, your experiment experientially, and commit to follow your strategy and authority. In this webinar, I am going to continue to give you some more tips and tricks as to how to embrace the experiment and how to commit to it, to following your strategy, honoring your authority. One way is just looking at it like a movie, because there's this really strange thing that human beings have cooked up as the way that life, or the illusion that life, the way that life works. And that is thinking that they're at all in charge of how things express themselves or others, or how life expresses itself. Because we think that we are in charge, that we decide. If I look at my body graph as an example, the mind, the decider, the I lodged out here in the openness. If I were to take each one of you and describe for you your not self purpose, if you have not yet deconditioned, you would identify with all of the different activations that are out there in the openness that are not the true uniqueness of you. So what I'm doing is I'm coloring in all of the open, these are receptor sites, okay? Receptor sites to others. And that's why you think you are that and not what you really are, because the mind thinks that it is something that it is not. Okay, so the mind thinks after the body decides. The body decides, I'm thirsty. I'm going to reach down and get a drink. And yet, the mind thinks it was in charge of that action, when in reality, the body decided moments, split seconds before the mind was realizing it was reaching down for the water. And you can go and look at that. So the mind thinks, I have to, must, should, and then all of the openness in the design is what you think you are identified with who you are. Now, for those of us who have, conceptual definition, or maybe their minds in areas of the design where they're here to communicate, in a defined channel, yes, it's conscious. You might be thinking of it, ruminating over that feeling or that experience before the actual deciding or choice point happens. However, the voice inside of your mind, inside of your head about yourself cannot be trusted, because it is contaminated and distorted by all of this openness in the design, crystallized conditioning that was created from you being in your mother's womb and being carried by her around as a baby and being raised by them, your parents, or whoever it is that raised you, or whoever it is that you looked up to, that you gave away your own authority in an attempt to earn validation and approval from somewhere outside of yourself, rather than going within and being who you are in order to live the fullness of this life experience. So, watching the movie, instead of your I inside of your head saying, I'm the decider, like George Bush, I'm the decider, going, what is life asking of me? Aligning to your strategy, honoring your authority, that process. So watching the mind like a movie. It is the Maya. It is just a movie. It is the mystery. So now, here's some frequently asked questions that I often get when I start off any new class. What this class is not. It's not about profile analysis, because that's in Rave cartography. I don't give you full channel descriptions because that would be a whole lot of teaching. That's in Rave cartography as well. The biology and function of the centers is introduced in LYD. The next class, Rave cartography, takes you deeper. And the I Ching gate line full descriptions are not there either. It's in the professional analyst training level 1, which I will be starting a new cohort or group next year. We have some people inviting. I always start a class when there's enough energy, invitation, interest, and then when I get clear on when to offer. So if you're interested in that, please do let us know. Planetary descriptions and cycle analysis comes in professional level 2. And incarnation crosses or life purpose analysis is in professional level 3. So this class doesn't get into all of that, although we can go into discussions of your own chart depending on the time, interest, and availability of the teacher. Now, ABCs is the first step towards becoming a human design professional, whether it be analyst training, whether it be guide training, whether it be any other of the advanced training. ABCs is your first step. It is a required element of the foundational teaching. You will want to get one of these Rave I Ching resources for the homework assignment that I'm going to give you towards the end of this class. You can either get the definitive book of human design, which has the I Ching line descriptions at the end of the book. If you're going to become a human design analyst, I recommend getting the complete Rave I Ching as a book because it's so helpful to have. It has all of the descriptions of visually of the incarnation crosses in there so that you can quickly reference it. But it also has all of the line value descriptions, which you can also get online if you prefer online stuff and you're traveling light and you don't want a book. You can also get that through mybodygraph.com under the shop information. That unlocks it for all of your body graphs so that when you're looking at a body graph, here's my teacher line. You can click on it and you will get the the deeper layer of descriptions that'll unlock it for all of the body graphs. Now, mybodygraph.com is free to create as many charts as you like, but there are additional add-ons in the shop so that you can get deeper layer information just like this. Okay, so I recommend that you get at least one of these 3. Now, there's also a book that's recommended, and that's the Rave ABC Student Manual. So the Rave ABC Student Manual is the companion book for this course. So for class preparation, you can get that book, enter into the classroom a few minutes early, just like I do. When I enter into the class, what I'll do is I go into my course, whatever course I happen to be teaching. Here you can see it's the projectors ABCs that we just started. And I go into the chat and I share the Zoom link in order for you guys to come into class right before class. So when you're on our learning platform, humandesign.live, in the chat, you'll get a little notice besides the fact that you've registered on Zoom. And if you add it to your calendar will also remind you that it's time for our live classes. Okay, so where am I? Here. Where did I go? Oh yeah, here. So one of the things that you might want to check out is jovianarchive.com. They have amazing, tremendous resources. If you're low on funds, you can't start learning right away, classes not to your time zone, whatever the case may be. Maybe you're not a Living Your Design Awakening participant quite yet. I highly recommend checking out jovianarchive.com. And when you go there, let me just pull it up for you. So under resources, the free media library. See how over here on the left-hand side, there's tons of audios, there's ebooks, there's tons of videos, and I'm talking tons. You'd think it was just like, oh, that's not a lot of videos, Laveena, but let me check you out, show you something. Under Phoenix Rising, as an example, look at all these classes. These are all classes from many different teachers. That's just one section of this area. I really liked design perspectives. I went through all of this when I first found human design, and it took me like a year to go through all of these videos, all of the content there. So just letting you know, it's one of Ra's wishes was that the system was simplified enough and enough of this material was available that could give anybody a really good start in learning to live their design. So if you're going into the certification program with me or with Peter, whoever, you're going to probably want some software to play with. The MMI software is available as a download on Jovian Archive. So you can go onto right here at the top, jovianarchive.com, MMI software, click on that, biomechanics imaging, and there's a free download where you can play with the free version. You can also play with mybodygraph.com. Those are the 2 options that I recommend, one of those 2. They also have recently, I haven't played with it yet, but the online version of biomechanics. And now, whoops, go back. Here we go. Have water, your book, your writing material, your chart printed, others charts. For those of you who are taking projector ABCs with me, I really encourage you to have 3 to 4 of the closest people in your life's charts in front of you. They do not have to be currently in your life, but if you interact with them on a regular basis or they raised you, you're going to want to look at their charts. Projectors learn through others, looking at others. And that's one of the reasons why we have a projector only group right now with me, besides the fact that they invited me to teach them. Also, turn off your phone for classes. You do not have to come on webcam when you're in live classes with me. I do appreciate it if you're talking to be able to see you, but sometimes we can't. Your internet, my internet ain't working so great. So I don't usually come on camera right now with live streaming like this. Do close all distractions so that you're completely present, available, focused for class. And in the projectors, ABCs, or if you're taking Peter's class, which starts next week, you're going to have this overview image that shows all of the assignments or ways for preparing for these classes. There are 7 core classes. We teach in the tradition and in the format of the International Human Design School. So it is the same as far as the structure. And these classes also have recommendations that are going to be either optional or, maybe required. Some of the videos, as an example, in my group, so that I have more time for my live mentoring, I require that you watch videos between classes. Okay, so there's lots of videos, lots of materials within our ABCs group that is going to help you master the human design system, get to the foundation of human design. So we'll go over those week by week. So this week, get your book. If you don't have access to being able to get that book, I understand it can be a problem overseas. It can be expensive for shipping. So I will accept the definitive book of human design, which is more widely available, and you might already have it instead of the student manual. The Rave ABC student manual is a small book, thin. And if you're going on to becoming a professional anything, the definitive book of human design is the book that is, let me go into vacues and show you the image. There you go. This book right here is the book that is the required manual for BG5, as an example, the foundations of human design applied to the career and work world. So I will accept that book. Okay, so that's what I want to give to you as far as preparing for this course. Now, let's continue with some adventures as far as how are you going to know if you're ready to go forward on this journey or in this experiment. How are you going to know? Well, for the projector, it will feel sweet. You'll feel invited. For the generator, you'll have energy for it. And either you'll be emotionally clear or you'll just find yourself, yeah, this is for me. For example, the next Rave ABCs for all types that we have is going to be taught by Peter Berv. Peter has been in his human design experiment a couple years longer than me. It's been well over 10 years for him. Learning, discovering, now teaching, being an analyst, and all of those fun things. He's a Rave ABCs teacher. So if the next live class, which starts November 23rd at 10 a.m. Mountain Time for about 90 minutes, up to 2 hours, for 7 weeks with an extra bonus study session where you come together and you deliver your homework or you talk about keynoting your own chart. If it's correct for you to join him being a 3-5, cross of the sleeping phoenix, pure sacral generator, a manifesting generator, actually, to be very precise, then you'll have energy. It will be available to you to join him if you're a generator. Highly recommend it if you're a generator, especially. And if the money isn't there, energy being, money being an equivalent of energy, I do recognize that right now it's very challenging for many people being out of work, having limited finances. Maybe, you've been hit really hard by the COVID or the inflation. We will accept for this class only a 3-part payment plan. So spreading out the payment plan over 3 months instead of the 2 months, which is what is normal. Okay, so that's something that you can write to us about, office@humandesignlifecoaching.com, if that's correct for you. And at the bottom of this place to sign up, I'm just going to pop this into the chat and also pop it into the YouTube, if you happen to be watching on YouTube. At the bottom of this page, you're going to find that there's information more about Peter and as well more about the class and some extra example bonus classes, some recordings of study groups that we've done in the past. I personally really enjoy study groups with my students, asking for questions and so forth and so on. If you're a manifester, you'll inform us because you have the energy to initiate or to innovate if you're ready to continue in the experiment. And if you're a reflector, then it will feel like a surprise that you're on this path and in this journey. And reflectors, if you have gone through LYD, it is highly recommended that you dive deeper into channels and circuits to understand your own lunar cycle. So it's really, really encouraged for you to do that, to commit to the learning, to understanding yourself. So committing to this new journey of discovery, committing to being your own authority requires that you install new habits, because most of the time, those of us who come across something new, ooh, shiny, pretty, and then you're like, nah, I don't feel like it. Maybe your mind is like, nah, you don't have the time to experiment. 7 years? I don't want to do something that requires 7 years. I want something now. Give me it now. Well, hate to break it to you. Have to, though. The human design experiment is an unfolding, and it does take that full 7 years for you to decondition from who you thought you were here to be and to recondition yourself. And that's what Ra set up these classes as, a reconditioning. So to commit to your being your own authority, we first have to set up, here's this flywheel that James Clear created for us on the 3 R's of habit formation. I love this thing. I want to just explain it to you real briefly. There's the reminder. So the reminder that I'm going to give you right now is, are you angry, frustrated, bitter, disappointment? That's the hook, the reminder. When you feel you get triggered by your not self habit, which is operate from bitterness, anger, frustration, disappointment. Keep pushing down that path of anger, manifester. That's going to get you somewhere. Not. Keep pushing down that path of bitterness, projector. That's going to get you somewhere. Not. Oh, my dear generators, you keep plowing away frustrated. Keep continuing down that path frustrated. That is not going to get you satisfaction. And then, of course, the reflector. Last, definitely not least, that tremendous pressure of disappointment in your life, that is not the way to go. So these signposts help show us that we're going in a direction that's just going to keep getting us more of what we're getting. That's the definition of insanity. So to remind oneself, come back home to your strategy. Your strategy, whatever it happens to be, gets you back on the path. And the routine is, remind yourself, what is your strategy? Go back to that strategy. What is your authority? Honor that authority. When you get to that place of honoring the authority, whatever it happens to be, reward yourself. And that reward is actually intrinsic. That reward is sweet. Success for the projector. It's satisfying energy usage for the generator. It's peaceful, operating in peace for the manifester. And it's the surprise in life that rewards the reflector. So very, very easy to navigate when we use these simple keys, these tools that you learned in your Living Your Design. If you didn't do Living Your Design, you need to experiment with going through that process, either with an individual or in a group, whatever's correct for you, to really set the foundational keys in place so that you can continue the journey with Rave ABCs, to go into the depths of the processes that we're going to uncover for you. So again, the next class with Peter Berv is scheduled to begin next week. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Hope this has been fun for you. For those of you who are in class, I shall see you next Wednesday. You're very welcome. And if you would like to join us for Peter's class, my recordings are available when you sign up for Peter's class as well. So you get 2 teachers for the price of 1 if you would like to join us on this journey, an adventure into you. Until next time, namaste and bye for now. Join us at humandesign.live.